The dawn arrived like any other, but something was different. The usual symphony of mourning was missing a vital instrument. Black people in all their beautiful diversity were gone. The news spread like wildfire. Confusion reigned in the streets. Phones buzzed with frantic calls unanswered. Social media exploded. Families were shattered, their homes echoing with the ghosts of laughter and love. Workplaces stood still, the absence of black colleagues a gaping wound. The world spun, but it no longer felt right. The disappearance was more than just a physical absence. It was a tear in the very soul of humanity. The initial shock gave way to a spectrum of reactions. Some felt a chilling sense of relief, while others, paralyzed by fear, retreated into the shadows. Conspiracy theories flourished, whispers of government experiments and alien abductions swirling. The world, always quick to demonize, searched for someone to blame. But for many, the overwhelming emotion was grief. Friends, family, lovers gone. The world felt cold, sterile, stripped of its warmth and vibrancy. The loss was immeasurable, a gaping wound in the heart of humanity. As days turned into weeks, the world held its breath. Life went on, but it was a pale imitation of what it had been before. The questions remained, echoing in the silence. Why had they vanished? Where had they gone? Would they ever return? The world was left teetering on the brink of an unknown future, forever marked by the absence of those who had built it, shaped it, and given it its soul. The gears of the global economy began to sputter. The workforce, now demonstrably smaller, felt the strain. Absentee lists grew longer. Industries that relied heavily on black labor felt the pinch first. Public transportation systems ground to a halt in some cities. Hospitals faced impossible decisions. The initial response was disbelief, then a mad scramble to fill the void. The contributions of black workers, often undervalued, were suddenly and painfully apparent. The stock market reacted with predictable volatility, sending shockwaves through Wall Street and beyond. The agricultural sector felt the impact immediately. Fields once teeming with life now stood eerily silent. Crops withered on the vine, unharvested. Supermarket shelves began to thin, and the price of staples skyrocketed. Food banks were overwhelmed by the surge in demand. The disappearance of black farmers exposed a brutal truth. The world's food security rested on their shoulders. The impact extended far beyond the fields and factories. In research labs and universities, a profound silence descended. The loss of black scientists, engineers, and inventors left a void that was impossible to fill. Projects stalled, breakthroughs were put on hold. The medical field felt the loss acutely. Clinical trials were halted, drug development slowed. The tech industry found itself at a standstill, the loss of black programmers and tech visionaries leaving a gaping hole in the digital landscape. The cumulative effect of these losses was devastating. The global economy went into freefall, currencies plummeted, inflation soared, and unemployment reached record highs. Governments scrambled to respond, but emergency measures proved inadequate. The systems that underpinned global trade and finance began to crumble. The disappearance of black people had exposed the lie of a self-sufficient world. The airwaves fell strangely silent. The music of black origin, the lifeblood of global culture, had vanished. Gone were the soulful melodies of jazz, the raw energy of rock and roll, the infectious beats of hip-hop. Dance floors lay deserted, instruments gathered dust. Radio stations struggled to fill the void, resorting to endless loops of classical music. The music lacked depth, soul, the raw, unfiltered expression of black experience. The world, now musically monochrome, mourned the loss of its most colorful threads. Fashion lost its audacity. The bold colors, innovative designs, and trend-setting styles pioneered by black designers were gone. The absence of black models, stylists, photographers, and editors left a gaping hole in the industry. Magazines struggled to fill their pages. The fashion world, built on the backs of black creativity, was now a pale imitation of its former self. The world, once dazzled by black designers, was now draped in a uniform of conformity. The very way we spoke felt the impact. Black vernacular, the language of the streets, was gone. The world, once rich with linguistic diversity, felt strangely muted. Gone were the poets, the writers, the storytellers who had used language to paint vivid pictures of black life. Comedy clubs fell silent, the sharp wit and social commentary of black comedians gone. The world, stripped of linguistic innovation and cultural commentary, felt dull, uninspired. Museums and art galleries felt eerily empty, the art of the black diaspora gone. The vibrant canvases, the powerful sculptures, the thought-provoking installations all vanished. Art history books now contained glaring omissions, the contributions of generations of black creatives erased. The art world, once a platform for black voices, was now a sterile reflection of a world that had failed to appreciate black creativity. The silence was deafening, the blank canvases a haunting reminder of a world stripped of its soul. The world echoed with the ghosts of injustices past. Empty spaces held the weight of history, the unspoken stories of generations who had lived under oppression. Statues of slave traders now stood as grotesque monuments to a shameful past. The names of slave owners etched on buildings and street signs now felt like curses. The prisons, once overflowing with black bodies, now held a haunting emptiness. The absence of black people did not erase the stain of mass incarceration, it amplified it. The ghosts of injustice were everywhere, their presence a chilling reminder of the unfinished business of equality. In the silence left by the vanishing, whispers of guilt and denial began to surface. Those who had benefited from systemic oppression now wrestled with the uncomfortable truth of their complicity. Denial was a shield against the weight of collective guilt. Some clung to the belief that the vanishing was a hoax, a mass delusion. But the whispers grew louder, fueled by the undeniable evidence of a world forever altered. The whispers became a chorus, a cacophony of voices grappling with the weight of history. The world was forced to confront the unpaid debt it owed to black people. Centuries of forced labor, stolen land, and systemic exploitation had created a chasm of inequality. Reparations, once dismissed as radical, now seemed like the only logical course of action. But how do you quantify the loss of culture, of identity, of human dignity? The question of reparations was about acknowledging the depth of the harm inflicted. The world, now forced to confront its own moral bankruptcy, struggled to find a way forward. The vanishing of black people had placed the world on trial. The empty streets, the silent airwaves, the blank canvases, they all served as evidence in a case against humanity. The charge? Crimes against humanity, perpetrated over centuries. The prosecution presented its case. The historical record of slavery, segregation, and discrimination. The defense, weak and unconvincing, sputtered excuses. It wasn't us, they cried. We didn't know. The world had failed in its most basic duty, to protect and uplift all of its citizens. The disappearance, defying all earthly explanation, pushed people towards the heavens. Churches and mosques filled to capacity. Synagogues buzzed with hushed prayers. People, desperate for answers, sought solace in the divine. Was this the rapture? God's judgment on a world steeped in sin? Had a vengeful deity finally tired of the cries of the oppressed and chosen to remove them from the equation? Sermons, once focused on love and forgiveness, now thundered with warnings of fire and brimstone. Others saw the vanishing as proof of ancestral power. Black people, they argued, had transcended the limitations of the physical realm. They had returned to the source, leaving behind a world unworthy of their presence. This was not a punishment but a liberation, a cosmic homecoming. The spiritual leaders of the world, grappling with their own faith, offered little comfort. They spoke of mysteries beyond human comprehension, of divine plans unfolding. But their words rang hollow in the face of such profound loss. The heavens, however, remained silent. No booming voice offered explanations, no divine messenger descended to offer comfort or pronounce judgment. The silence was deafening, amplifying the sense of abandonment. Astrologers, once relegated to the fringes of society, found themselves thrust into the spotlight. Their charts and predictions, once dismissed as mere entertainment, were now scrutinized for clues. But the stars, cold and indifferent, offered no answers. Scientists, their instruments calibrated to measure the physical world, found themselves out of their depth. The laws of physics of cause and effect seemed to have been suspended. This was not a phenomenon they could explain, not a mystery they could solve. The world, accustomed to seeking answers in data and logic, found itself adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The cosmic silence was a stark reminder of the limits of human understanding, the vastness of the unknown. The idea of karma, of cause and effect playing out on a global scale, took root in the collective consciousness. Had the world's treatment of black people finally caught up with it? Was this the inevitable consequence of centuries of exploitation and oppression? The concept of a karmic debt resonated deeply. It offered a framework for understanding the seemingly inexplicable. The world had sown the seeds of its own destruction, and now it was reaping the bitter harvest. For some, this realization was a source of grim satisfaction. Justice, though long delayed, had finally been served. The scales had been balanced, however brutally. The world, they reasoned, would now learn the true cost of its actions. Others saw it as a wake-up call, a chance for redemption. The world, stripped bare, had been given a rare opportunity to confront its demons, to atone for its sins, to build a more just and equitable future. The Vanishing became a crucible, testing the faith of millions. Those who had built their lives on the bedrock of religious belief found their foundations shaken. Where was God in all of this? Why had he allowed such suffering? Why had he remained silent? Some turned away from organized religion altogether, disillusioned and disheartened. They sought solace in nature, in meditation, in the quiet spaces within themselves. Faith, once a source of comfort, now felt like a cruel illusion. Others clung to their beliefs with even greater fervor. This was a test, they argued, a trial by fire. Their faith would see them through, even in the face of unimaginable loss. They prayed for answers, for guidance, for a sign that they had not been abandoned. The Vanishing had exposed the fragility of faith, the deep-seated need for meaning in a world suddenly devoid of it. It was a stark reminder that even in the face of the unknown, the human spirit would continue to search for answers, for hope, for something to believe in. The world, reeling from the loss, grappled with a new question. Could they come back? Was the disappearance a permanent fixture, a divine decree, or could humanity somehow earn their return? The possibility, however slim, became a beacon of hope, a goal to strive for. The question of their return wasn't driven solely by longing or guilt. The world, now painfully aware of its dependence on black people, saw their return as essential for survival. Their absence had exposed the fragility of a world built on inequality. But what would it take? What conditions would have to be met to entice a people so profoundly wronged to return to the scene of their oppression? The answer, whispered on the wind, carried the weight of centuries of unmet demands. Justice, true and unflinching, was the first condition. The systems of oppression, the legacies of slavery and colonialism, would have to be dismantled. The deep-seated biases, the institutional racism, the casual cruelty that permeated every aspect of society would need to be eradicated. Justice, however, was only the beginning. The world, having acknowledged its debt, would then have to grapple with the question of reparations. How do you repay centuries of stolen labor, of denied opportunities, of systematic dehumanization? The price of redemption wouldn't be cheap. It would require a radical redistribution of wealth, a dismantling of the structures that had allowed a select few to prosper at the expense of so many. The beneficiaries of a system built on inequality would be asked to relinquish their ill-gotten gains. Monetary compensation, while essential, wouldn't be enough. The world would need to make amends for the cultural genocide it had inflicted, for the erasure of history, for the denial of humanity. The contributions of black people would need to be acknowledged, celebrated, and woven into the very fabric of society. Most importantly, the world would need to demonstrate a genuine commitment to change. It was no longer enough to simply acknowledge past wrongs. Concrete actions were needed to create a future where such injustices could never again take root. The task ahead was monumental: to rebuild a world from the ashes of its own prejudice. It was a task that would require not just material resources but a fundamental shift in consciousness, a collective awakening to the interconnectedness of all humanity. Education would be paramount. The true history of the world, the stories that had been silenced, the perspectives that had been ignored, would need to be taught in classrooms, shared in homes, and woven into the cultural narrative. The arts, once again, would play a vital role. The voices of black artists, writers, musicians, and filmmakers would need to be amplified, their stories given a platform, their perspectives allowed to shape the world anew. Trust, so easily broken, would need to be painstakingly rebuilt. It would require honesty, transparency, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It would require a commitment to listening, to understanding, to bridging the divides that had separated people for far too long. Could the world, so steeped in its own history of oppression, truly change? Could it shed the mantle of prejudice and embrace a future of equality and justice? The answer, uncertain, hung heavy in the air. The potential for transformation was there, but it would require a collective act of will, a conscious choice to break free from the shackles of the past. It would require courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to creating a world worthy of the people who had been taken. The disappearance of black people had been a tragedy, a loss felt in every corner of the globe. But it had also been a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the fragility of humanity and the interconnectedness of all people. The world, forever changed, now stood at a crossroads. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the potential for further missteps. But the possibility of redemption, of creating a world where justice and equality prevailed, remained a glimmering possibility on the horizon. The world without black people is a world incomplete, a shadow of its former self. The vibrancy, the innovation, the sheer force of will that black people brought to the human experience is missing, leaving a void that echoes through time, leaving a chasm impossible to fill. It's a world where the music feels hollow, the rhythm of life disrupted, the art sterile, the very air struggling to catch its breath, as if the essence of creativity has been stripped away. Every corner of the globe bears the scars of their absence, a haunting reminder of what once was. The fields lie fallow, the factories are hushed, the hum of progress silenced, the bustling city streets eerily quiet, as if the heartbeat of the world has slowed. It's a stark, undeniable testament to the fallacy of a world that believed it could thrive without them, a world that now faces the consequences of its ignorance. More than just labor or economic output, it's the absence of their spirit that weighs heaviest, a spirit that once fueled progress and innovation. The absence of their spirit that weighs heaviest, a void that cannot be filled by mere structures or monuments. The unwavering pursuit of justice, the relentless fight for equality, the creativity born from struggle, the innovation that emerged from adversity, the joy that found its way through generations of pain. These are the irreplaceable elements that have vanished. These are the irreplaceable elements that have vanished, leaving the world a much poorer place. Leaving the world a much poorer place, a place devoid of the richness of their contribution. The world, now forced to confront its own reflection in the mirror of their absence, sees its flaws with terrifying clarity, a reflection of its own shortcomings. Sees its flaws with terrifying clarity, a stark reminder of what has been lost. It's a world yearning for a melody it can no longer recall, a song that once brought unity and joy, a world desperately trying to paint a masterpiece with a palette drained of its most vibrant hues, a canvas that remains incomplete. The responsibility for this void, for the profound loss that reverberates through every facet of life, rests squarely on the shoulders of those who remain. It is a burden that we must all share, a collective duty to ensure that such a tragedy is never repeated. The world can no longer afford to ignore the systemic injustices, the deeply ingrained prejudices, the casual cruelties that created the conditions for such a tragedy. We must confront these issues head-on, with unwavering determination and a commitment to real change. It's a responsibility that demands more than just remorse or empty gestures. It calls for sustained action, for a deep and abiding commitment to justice and equality. True atonement requires a fundamental shift in how we value human life, how we define progress, how we build a future that is truly equitable and just. It means rethinking our priorities and making sure that every decision we make is guided by a commitment to fairness and inclusivity. This means dismantling the systems of oppression that have for too long determined the fate of individuals based on the color of their skin. It requires a concerted effort to break down these barriers and build a society where everyone has an equal opportunity to thrive. It means confronting our own biases, challenging the narratives that perpetuate inequality, and actively working towards a world where such a disappearance could never again be conceivable. This is not an easy task, but it is a necessary one. The world, now stripped bare, has an opportunity to rebuild, to create a society where the contributions of all people are valued, where diversity is celebrated, and where justice is not a distant dream, but a lived reality. This is our chance to make a lasting difference, to create a legacy of hope and equality for future generations. The seeds of this change, ironically, lie dormant in the very absence that defines this new world. In the silence we find the echoes of what once was, and the potential for what could be. The silence amplifies the voices of the past, whispering lessons that we must heed. The emptiness underscores the value of what has been lost, reminding us of the vibrancy that once filled these spaces. It's a stark, undeniable lesson etched into the fabric of everyday life, a call to action that cannot be ignored. The world forever marked by this profound absence is presented with a choice. Cling to the ghosts of a broken past or rise from the ashes with a renewed commitment to building a just and equitable future. This choice is not just for the leaders, but for every individual. This means honoring the legacy of Black people not just with words but with action, ensuring their contributions are never forgotten. It means investing in communities, amplifying marginalized voices, and creating spaces where everyone can be heard. It means dismantling the systems of oppression that continue to plague our world, breaking the chains that have held so many back. It means recognizing that the fight for racial justice is not a destination but a journey, one that requires constant vigilance and effort, a continuous process of self-reflection, understanding our own biases, education and action, teaching the next generation the importance of equality and justice. It's a journey that requires empathy, courage, and a willingness to stand up for what is right, and an unwavering belief in the power of collective action to create a better world. Together, we can build a future that honors the past and embraces the potential of what lies ahead. The disappearance of Black people, while a profound tragedy, can serve as a catalyst for this change. It is a wake-up call to the fragility of our societal structures. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of our world, the interconnectedness of humanity, and the responsibility we all share, and the urgent need to build a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, where every voice is valued and every life is cherished.